me alone, man. They got 5 months from me. And then trying to tell me, bro, we're counter surveilling the guy. You know what I mean? He's hiding here. I'm hiding here. Oh, we don't know.
Just when you think you can't tape it, another Ford tape. And this guy's polling better than our president, eh? Maybe because Toronto's not doing so bad, eh? And us, not so good. A health care law that has got us sick and a recovery that's got many of us wishing we were stoned. But attention, shoppers, all that is about to change, unfortunately, for the worse. Eh? Welcome, everyone. I'm Neil Cavuto. And why should Target shoppers have all the fun? Now, Target workers are feeling sick, at least most of Target's part-time workers. The company just yanking their health care coverage, apparently because the new health care law just makes it so damn expensive. Target's just the latest to do this. Business titan John Paul DeJoria says it will not be the last. John Paul, good to have you back. The company argues that providing benefits for part-time workers just isn't worth it, and it's gotten too costly to do. So these guys are on to the exchange. What do you make of this?
You know, I just had a conversation with John Capper recently that showed me a different side about what's going on right now that people just should have their eyes open to. Example, if you live in states like California, New York, or many, many other states where your state tax is 13, 14% off whatever you make over $250,000, if you make more than that, if you take that and our increase from 35 to over 39%, and then you add on top of it Obamacare, more than half the year for people where the American dream came true, they're paying that to the government. Now, as John so well points out, and I agree, everyone that really needs health care and not just wants to sponge or be a freeloader deserves to get in our great nation or give them food if they really need it. But so many are going on. More and more business people today, small businesses with over 12 people that Obamacare affects, people that are making more money are saying, well, wait a minute. If they raised our taxes to almost 40%, with Obamacare 44%, and then with state taxes more than half the year we're working for free, what's wrong with the government? When they went from 35 to 39 plus, why couldn't that handle it all? Now, what are they doing in it's not retaliation, but what are they doing to offset it? And John said this, I'm delaying, even though the economy's on an upswing, it's a slow upswing, by the way, a very slow one. Instead of getting another car every 4-5 years, JP, I'm going an extra year. Yes, I make more than $250,000. The American dream came true for me, but I'm offsetting it in different ways. And business people they speak to are saying, well, wait a minute, this doesn't work out. And here's something people don't realize. When Obamacare came into effect, that extra 3+% not only went to everyone's taxes, it went to capital gains.
But the irony is, John, here's the irony, that for those who are nowhere near that income threshold, they're getting screwed here because for these companies and businesses that were providing benefits for part-time workers, which is something they didn't have to do, it was a real, prime Benny. They're saying now it's just too cost prohibitive, that the coverage they have to provide just made it too prohibitive. Now, the flip side is that these people haven't lost coverage. They're going to gain coverage under the new system. It probably won't be quite the same, and it will probably be more expensive. So the argument you'll hear from the administration is then they've got nothing to complain about. But the reality is the companies that wanted to take this on their own and help workers out will be increasingly forced to just give it up, right?
That is correct. And by the way, it does have an effect on everybody. And again, my conversation with John, he really pointed this out. He said, JP, when we start cutting back on anything, even though we still do it, we're a little delayed in doing it, it affects everybody down because people with regular jobs that have normal jobs, maybe their business isn't as good as it should be. So not as many as could be working are working. When people start cutting back on benefits, they're also cutting back on the amount of jobs that are available full-time. So when you go to full-time to part-time, that affects everybody so the company could exist. Now, you can't really blame the companies in a big way because they got to look also at the people that invested money in their business. They're not paying 15% on dividends. They're paying almost 24% on dividends now.
But your argument is that we're going to see more of this. More companies will do the Target thing. It's just a dollar.
Unfortunately, we will. Yeah, unfortunately, we will. But there's an answer. The answer is if these guys could get together and just just kind of adjust it a little bit and make something that works for all of America, everybody benefits.
They're not doing that.
They got to go back in and do it. I know they're not.
No, they're not.
They got to go back and do it.
Very good point, Saul. They're just not doing it. John Paul DeJoria, thank you, my friend. In the meanwhile, to a web of trouble and deceit, some say, on the part of an administration that could be admitting this entire thing is falling apart. FoxBusiness.com's Kate Rogers with the skinny on that. Hey, Kate.
Hi, Neil. Well, the Obama administration seems to be admitting that things aren't running quite that smoothly for healthcare.gov. In a newly published document detailing why the Department of Health and Human Services chose IT firm Accenture to fix the troubled website, it admits that major fixes have to be made by mid-March, or it warns, and this is the administration's words, it could put the entire health industry at risk. The fixes that must be made include creating the back-end mechanism for insurance companies to receive subsidy payments from the government, as well as fixing those 834 form delivery errors from healthcare.gov to insurers. Now, these forms are important because they tell insurers who's actually enrolled in plans. If these fixes aren't made by that date, the document says it will result in, quote, financial harm to the government, as the government could make erroneous payments to providers and insurers. Now, since open enrollment period kicked off, 2.2 million people have enrolled in plans on federal and state exchanges. And we all know every American has to have insurance by the end of this period on April 1st, or they're going to face that fine of $95 a year for failing to comply. I reached out to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services to elaborate more on these concerns and issues. And in a statement, a CMS spokesperson told me, quote, we've accomplished a great deal, but we still have much left to do. But experts say the task at hand here is great and that time is really running out, Neil.
Amazing. To say you have a lot more to do is an understatement.
Kind of an understatement.
Just minimize all the pain. Kate, thank you very, very much. Kate Rogers.
Thank you.
In the meantime, from time running out to numbers running up, now a record 1 in 5 Americans, 1 in 5, at least 1 in 5 households are receiving food stamps. What's more, 100 million Americans are receiving some form of food assistance. Gretchen Hamill says, obviously, those who need food assistance shouldn't be denied food assistance, but these numbers are out of control. Gretchen, 100 million who are getting some food assistance, 1 out of 5 getting food stamps. Something isn't right here.
Something isn't right, and I think you can look to our economy for not being right. And what we see here is just a symptom of a greater problem. We have an economy that is weak, an economy that is failing to produce jobs. We've seen, a 20% increase of those households on food stamps. We've seen a 51% increase over the course of 5 years. And let's all remember what happened 5 years ago. We had the stimulus that went into effect, the stimulus that cost taxpayers $800 billion and was supposed to save the economy. And here we have a 35-year low labor participation rate and have a record number of people on food stamps. I don't think it worked.
Now, I don't know what the math is they're using to get this, and I don't deny those who genuinely need assistance should get assistance. But if we've gotten to the point where 1 out of 3 of us are getting some sort of food assistance and 1 out of 5 households are getting food stamps outright, then this isn't just a bumpy recovery. This is the depression.
Yeah, it's a depression, and it's also creating a culture of dependency. What is the government going to do when it's $17 trillion in debt currently, and that debt continues to climb, and we can no longer borrow anymore, and we can no longer feed the people who are dependent upon the government? Something's got to give here, but I think it shows that the government needs to kind of get out of the way and let an economy produce the jobs that it needs. We need more free market policies in place so we can see those jobs come back instead of having, the number of regulations up. I mean, how many have we had over the course of the past 4 years? I think we are seeing a record number coming out of this administration, and we just need to see the government step back, step out of the way.
But it doesn't. And what's more is those who are against this don't really pipe up too much about this because they're afraid of looking like, callous SOBs or what have you. And I can understand the image part of it and where people feel, well, I can't be opposed to food stamps, but can you be opposed to taxpayers footing an ever higher bill to support those food stamps? I just think we get the argument backwards.
Yeah, and at some point, we're not going to be able to feed anyone. We're not even going to be able to help those who need it most because the government has going to have spent itself way, way, way into a hole.
Yeah, and when we start creating these programs and then sell them on the idea that they are, in fact, stimulative, as we do with unemployment benefits and we do with government support of any type, it's like we're trying to put a gloss on something that's a cancer, and that long-term is going to eat away at our system and our taxpayer base.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, just in the report just before, saying that if the government doesn't get the health care program worked out by mid-March, it puts the whole health care system, which makes over 17% of our GDP, it puts it at risk. That just shows that the government cannot get involved in the business of doing business, and it cannot solve society's problems.
Well, it is what it is right now, and it's a big worry. Gretchen, thank you as always. Well, add all these problems up, and Pat Goodell say Democrats could be in big trouble come November. How do you think this is falling out, though, Pat? Because many Democrats tell me on this very show, we'll give this whole health care thing a few months. Things will sort out. Look at this recovery. Bumpy as it is, it will sort out. And that come November, a lot of the problems we're moaning about today will seem like rearview mirror stuff. What do you say?
Well, these people have been saying this forever on the Obamacare since it passed. I'm one of the voices that has said all along the American people were never going to accept this. It was jammed down their throat. All of this news gets worse. It's not that the website didn't work. Nothing in it is working right. The number of people who are not enrolled, young people. Instead, we have more people on Medicaid in some states without. We don't even know who's on this plan. And that report is jarring. It should be front page news, but guess what? It isn't. Because we have to have political denial rather than truth. It's why problems don't get solved. But the next big one is going to come if the numbers we're seeing are correct, and this is going to be, we'll see if the Republicans can grasp this idea, this issue about bailing out the insurance companies. The insurance companies' position on Obamacare all along has been heads I win, tails you lose, which is if you sign up, we get lots of people, we make money. If you don't, we get government subsidies. At some point, we're all paying for this, and it isn't working. And what we saw today with Target, and what you just talked about at the top of the program, will be repeated over and over and over again in the thousands of examples. And these are real things affecting real people. So if you take that and you take an economy where in the Gallup poll the other day, for the first time in 5 years, a plurality of people said the economy is worse than it was a year ago. This is not good news. You can keep promoting one end, but you can't keep the perceptions from being real.
But you mentioned how Republicans, too, in the past have robbed defeat from the jaws of victory. And I wonder if on this insurance company bailout idea, if it comes to reality, Republicans would be nervous about not doing it because they were nervous. Here's my point. They were nervous about saying no to the banks because that would be kablooey. We were told we had to rescue them. So if they say no to insurance companies, then you're telling the American people that kablooey on you, your insurance is going to go to pot. Now, will they do that, and how will they reframe that?
Well, the question, which you just pointed out, is if they do reframe it. First of all, too many of them take money from the insurance industry. We're in this pickle because too many on both sides are bought by the insurance industry. Let's get this straight. They've been Obama's silent partners in the beginning, and they've been buying Republicans not to attack Obamacare all the way through, too. Somebody's got to get up there and say, insurance, folks, you're paying for all this. The insurance companies, the country didn't like the bailouts of banks. The Republicans seem to feel like they have to support big business. When they start supporting Main Street, they're in a better position. But look, the real thing about the economy is, I did a poll recently, 90% grasp that number. 90% believe the economic policies of both parties have failed to produce real jobs and better wages. That is the middle ground, and the Republicans as the challengers ought to use it.
Patrick, good idea as old. Great seeing you again. Pat Goodell, what I'm sure is a warmer Charleston, South Carolina.